Hi there. I want to welcome you all to our TikTok session today. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm dialing in from Syracuse, New York, where I live, and I've been camped out for a little while, and it's a beautiful day here. My name is Jennifer Greigel. I'm an assistant professor of communications at the Newhouse School, obviously. I want to say a quick hello to any maybe former students who are out there who I've worked with. Also maybe any of our first year students who are dialing in, and also just the alumni. So it's really great to be here with you today via Zoom, and to have a couple of our panelists, alumni, joining us today too. So thank you to our special guests. I also just want to thank those who have coordinated this opportunity for us all to get together today to talk about TikTok and what's happening there and what's next on the horizon. And just a reminder to everybody that we're recording this session for those who can't join today. It'll be posted to the Newhouse YouTube channel. So just to keep that in mind as well as we're discussing. There will be an opportunity for you guys to put in some questions. We'll be moderating that. And my hope is to take that more in real time to make sure that we're engaging and not just saving Q&A for the very end. So if you have a question, jump in, and we'll do our best to take that question in real time. So I want to just, again, welcome our guests today. I see you guys are popping up in the feed there. So if you want to maybe turn on your mics, and I think the video is looking pretty good. But if I could just quickly introduce everybody before we dive in and start talking about TikTok, right? So we have Isa Garcia Hodges, who's a reporter at NBC News. Welcome, and I see you today. Alfred Neng, who's at CNET and a senior reporter there. I know we've done a lot of work together in the past, so thanks for joining us today. And then Steve Kovach, who's at CNBC, and I know I've been reading your work for a while too. So we have amazing alumni all over the place engaging in journalism. And so when we were putting the panel together today, I was just like, wow, let's go out and talk to some journalists, help set the stage for what's happening in TikTok, and just to start to maybe break it down as we're, kind of looking at the situation that's unfolding and what the future is for the company there. So maybe I could turn things over to you, Alfred, if you want to turn on your mic there. And maybe you can help us set the stage for what is TikTok. Also, we're going to briefly talk about Wechat, which was wrapped in on a couple of the president's executive orders. And to maybe just lay out, is this a national security risk? What is happening here? So maybe a quick overview of the two apps in question and what the risks are.
Yeah, sure. If you're not familiar with TikTok, it is the latest, social network where teens and businesses alike are jumping on and making these kind of viral videos. There's been a lot of viral dances that came from it. If you remember Lil Nas X, his song Old Town Road was like kind of the first TikTok song that really blew up. But recently, the reason why we're all here today talking about it is because, TikTok takes a lot of data from your devices. It takes your IP address. It knows when you use it, how you use it, where you're using it from, who your friends are on it, how often you're using it. It knows your phone number, what kind of device you're using it from, like if you're accessing it from a computer or an iPhone or an Android device. This is a lot of sensitive stuff that is a privacy concern for a lot of people, enough that the Senate really, they passed a bill recently banning government employees from using it. The Pentagon has policies against its own staffers using it.
Oh, I think we maybe are freezing up there a little bit. Steve, can you hear him or?
No.
Can you hear me?
Now
okay,
we're good.
Alfred, maybe you could restart there, Alfred. No worries.
All right, can you hear me now though?
Yes, I can. Life of Zoom. So, yep.
All right. So I'll start that again then. So TikTok, if you're not familiar with it, is a social media app that's kind of been the latest trend with, if you remember Lil Nas X and his song Old Town Road, that was really one of the first songs to blow up on it. There's a lot of funny videos on it. It has these video editing tools that Facebook recently tried to copy with Reels that you've been seeing on Instagram. But I think the reason why we're all here talking about it is because of the executive order and the potential for TikTok to be banned from the US in the next 40-something days. And the reason why is because, TikTok takes a lot of data from your devices. It takes your IP address, it knows when you use it, how you use it, where you're using it from, who your friends are on it, how often you're using it, what kind of device you're accessing it from. This is obviously a lot of sensitive information that's a privacy concern for a lot of people, enough that the Senate passed a bill banning government employees from using it. The Pentagon has policies against it, and campaigns like Joe Biden's campaign tells its staffers do not use TikTok. But at some point you should ask the question, Facebook, Google, Amazon, they're all taking the same level of information from your devices. Your weather app will sell your location data to brokers every day, and they're not considered a national security concern on the same level that TikTok is. And I've spoken with a few.
Yeah, maybe we also can kind of frame it as who the owners are of TikTok and also WeChat, and then who the owners are with Facebook, right? And where they're domiciled and why the data, where the owner is, why it matters. Maybe we could just lay that out just a little.
I was going to get to that next. So unlike Facebook, Google, and Amazon, TikTok is owned by ByteDance, a Chinese company, and there's obviously concerns around that with the Chinese government having mandates and having kind of reach into every tech company that's in there, where they can, if they chose to, could access data, held by these companies. And I know that TikTok has tried to, assuage a lot of these concerns, saying that, we have servers in America and the Chinese government has never accessed or requested data from us on American citizens or anything like that. And, a CIA analysis reported by the New York Times last week has, basically confirmed that, saying that, they haven't seen any evidence of the Chinese government using data from TikTok to spy on Americans in the way that the Trump administration says it could.
Yeah. That's a good kind of broad overview, I think, of some of the risks. So again, the president is saying there's a national security risk. He's indicated that he wants to ban this. Maybe, Isa, we can shift to you. And Alfred had alluded to the executive orders. Maybe you could break this down. What are they? Is it viable? Can he do this? Might you help us sort through this?
Absolutely, yeah. So essentially what he's done, he's created these two executive orders. They're very vague and somewhat broad. And yesterday, Mike Pompeo kind of alluded to the fact that they actually might apply to, they might be broader than we even realize at the moment. Right now, they apply to ByteDance, which is the parent company of TikTok, and then WeChat, which is owned by Tencent. There's obviously a lot of questions that people still have about kind of what the scope of it could be. And there's some legal issues, right? He could come up against First Amendment issues, right? If he's trying to limit software that essentially kind of allows people to express themselves, that's one argument that he could that he could come up against, right? There's also the fact that, the IEEPA essentially bars the banning of information across from import export. So that's another issue that he could come up against. But at the same time too, he's arguing that it's a national security threat. So that gives him, somewhat broad power, right? To kind of argue that if he can reliably say that this is a national security threat, that, China having access to this information could pose a huge issue for American citizens, that gives him a lot, that's a really strong or really broad kind of argument.
Power.
Right? Power, exactly.
Yeah.
The other thing he could do, or he could have done, is kind of use CFIUS, which is the Committee on Foreign Investment. And so they have they're a really unique kind of entity, and the president has ultimate authority there. They're able to essentially unwind deals that involve foreign investors, and we've seen them do that in the past with China.
Specifically for China, though.
Exactly.
I mean, China is it's called CFIUS. It's for China, knowing that they want to have special treatment there.
Absolutely. And we've seen them do that with foreign investment in Grindr, Chinese foreign investment in Grindr in the past. So there is precedent there for that. And again, they don't have to justify why. They don't have to share why they've allowed this to be banned, right? So I think that, certainly TikTok has already said that they are likely going to sue and pursue legal action. And so, as far as whether that ban in 40 or so days is actually going to, be able to kind of hold up, it's unclear, right? And again, there's so much unclear about the executive orders, and we've seen this in the past, right, where Trump will threaten something, issue an executive order, and then, whether it actually comes to fruition is a totally different story.
Yeah. These are definitely big executive orders, though. So maybe again, just to recap that for everyone, because that was a lot of acronyms. Sure. So we have CFIUS, which deals with Chinese foreign investments, and so TikTok acquired Musically a little while ago, right? And they didn't go through what would be a kind of a pre-approval process where they could ask the Treasury Department, will you allow this Chinese company to acquire this underlying technology? They kind of fast forwarded it through that, which allows the Treasury to kind of look back on that and say, oh, actually, that is a threat. We want to handle that. But that only applies to the U.S. operations, right? So he went a totally different route. So he went and he used this, can you maybe just break down the kind of the national emergency and the economic, kind of emergency powers that he took place? Because that's a totally different route. And it was a new executive order that just happened like, a year or two ago, which allowed him to control what's called the communication supply chain. To essentially make sure that the United States communication is secure, right? So this is all done through presidential powers, though. So can you maybe just elaborate a little bit on what that executive order was, what he called out in it?
Yeah, so he basically said that China having access to this, and again, as Alfred pointed out, there are lots of American companies who have similar access to it, but the fact that it's China, Trump has throughout his administration, he has really taken issue with China and almost kind of launched
that's
second,
notable.
Yeah, exactly.
We framed as a trade war often.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely. And that's, and we've seen that had kind of mitigating success. But this new TikTok, this crusade against TikTok and ByteDance and WeChat is really interesting in the sense that, he might actually be able to do that. And ahead of the election, that's really interesting framing as well. But so as far as the executive orders, I think the big thing there is that using the national security argument gives him a lot of power to say that he's doing this in the interest of Americans and that he's doing this to protect people, because that data, if it were misused by the Chinese government, it could have really deleterious ramifications. So I think that while the executive orders are vague and they don't quite state everything that they intend to do, that might in some way work toward their advantage, because the national security argument is really strong. We've seen that power and that ability wielded by the president, especially during escalating tensions or periods of escalating tension, can have a lot of scope.
Yeah. And Alfred, maybe, and I'll get to you in a second, Steve, I promise. But Alfred, maybe you could just help outline the difference between WeChat and TikTok, because he did this at the same time and it was consecutive, right? So it's really key to understand, again, like we don't really have the CFIUS argument where we could maybe divest Musically from under TikTok, and then also maybe knowing how TikTok has a Chinese domiciled kind of secondary app that's for Chinese national people only, right? So maybe just breaking down the WeChat versus TikTok versus Douyin, just so we understand all the forces on the apps there.
Yeah, I'm super confused at why WeChat was included in that executive order. Specifically because it's completely different from what TikTok is. WeChat is, think of it like the Facebook of China or something like that, where everyone is on WeChat, and even there's a lot of Chinese like citizens in the U.S. that are on WeChat as well. It's basically like Facebook Messenger. I know that a few Chinese restaurants in my neighborhood actually use WeChat that you can order from there. So in a way, it's also like Uber Eats there. It's gigantic in China, but it's not TikTok. It's not a secure. It's not like a social media app or anything like that. And the security risks there would be definitely different than what TikTok has presented. But with WeChat, I think the concern there is a little bit more valid, considering that the Chinese government like does monitor like the conversations that happen on WeChat, and they do have a fair amount of access to it, and they have been, you know, censoring conversations that happen on WeChat very frequently. But again, very weird to pair it with TikTok here.
Yeah, and again, so just to help map it out for those on the meeting here today, the WeChat, people in China can use it and international folks can use it. I was just reading a piece about in the Los Angeles Times about how people are running businesses on WeChat too. Like you were just noting, it doesn't just happen in China, it happens here in the United States. So when you're doing international marketing, you want to market to, you know, from the United States into China, there really are two avenues. There's LinkedIn through Microsoft that's allowed to kind of pass through and is approved there. For example, Facebook is banned in China, right? So, but WeChat is one of the few apps that actually is usable in both locations, right? So inside what we call the Chinese Great Firewall, right? So where the internet is kind of cordoned off, and then externally outside into, you know, what we think of as the greater open internet, right? But with TikTok, again, it's actually broken up so that there's a domestic Chinese version, right? That's Douyin. They had a totally different name, separate data, and, you know, Chinese individuals there located in China, they can't use TikTok. They actually refer to TikTok sometimes as the international version, right? So it's for folks outside. So it actually doesn't have that connective port through the, you know, again, what we refer to as the firewall on the internet, right? So I just want to make that clear, that that's why WeChat and TikTok, and maybe why you were, again, we're alluding to the fact that WeChat could be the bigger issue here, right? So the bigger risk. All right, so the president wants somebody to acquire TikTok, right? So Steve, maybe we could jump to you and talk about like who could even purchase this, right? And maybe talk through like some of the mechanics, some of the potential buyers, and what we need to know around that issue.
Yeah, sure. Got to ask the CNBC guy the acquisition question, I guess.
That's right.
Yeah. So Microsoft is clearly the top contender to buy it's going to be mostly the English speaking businesses. So slices of TikTok, US, Australia, New Zealand. I think those are the only three. There might be another, but Microsoft, you know, it came out late last week that they were kicking around this idea of buying the US business to kind of prevent this ban ahead of this deadline, that it would get booted out of the country. And Microsoft is uniquely capable and qualified to be the top contender to buy it because, one, they have the money. This is not going to be cheap. My colleague David Faber reported, I think last week, it could go for anywhere, just the US business of TikTok, anywhere between $10 billion and $30 billion. So there's a wide range they're working for, but that ain't cheap. And Twitter can't afford it. Snapchat can't afford it. Facebook could afford it, but it's not going to due to all the antitrust scrutiny. They've already named TikTok as a competitor. And the last thing they're going to want to do is try to look like they're snuffing out a potential social media upstart. So Microsoft has the money. It has the cloud capabilities. It is the second largest cloud provider next to Amazon. So it has that infrastructure needed to bring it over. Also, it has the engineers and the technical talent to go to China, bring whatever necessary code from TikTok over here and make sure it's all stored here on Microsoft servers. There have been some numerous reports about other companies and parties kicking around trying to buy it. I guarantee you the VC community in Silicon Valley is drooling over the prospect of being allowed to invest in this. It's keep in mind, this app has 100 million users just in the US alone. At least that's what TikTok says. That's incredibly valuable. It's a young audience. You know, they have a lot of purchase power and things like that. It's very, appealing to advertisers. So Microsoft seems to be in the best position. You probably saw a report Twitter was thinking of a way to make this work. It just really looks like Microsoft talked to the White House, said, okay, we understand you're going to do this in 45 days. We're going to do our best to lock up this deal before then and make this happen.
So maybe just to dig in a little bit more there. So they were also saying they didn't want to purchase the entire thing, right? So I heard, like last I heard, was like a 30% stake, right? They don't want to maybe own the whole thing. What's happening there? Why wouldn't they want to do
it's
that?
just the U.S. It's just the U.S. business, and there's Australia and New Zealand that they're going to buy. And the idea behind that is, let's take these English-speaking countries, especially the United States, where it has the biggest presence in English-speaking countries, and because of all these concerns, because TikTok would rather sell than have it just shut down and lose out totally. And so that's kind of the rationale behind here. It's either sell to a U.S. company, be fully owned and controlled by a U.S. company, at least those English-speaking parts, and that will kind of like appease any regulatory fears.
Yeah, so I don't know. If there's others in publishing that might be interested. What is the value? Anyone want to jump in? Maybe
we're hearing 10 billion. I mean, David Faber, my colleague. It's in flux. Keep in mind, again, this is just a slice. So 10 billion bucks at the low end, and maybe as high as 30 billion. Again, not cheap, and not many companies can afford that.
Yeah, and maybe we can open this up to some of the folks who are dialed in too. Like, what is the value? Like, why are people using this? So, we just caught up with some folks at Pew the other day, and they were saying there's only a very small percentage of like journalism that happens on TikTok. Is this all about entertainment? What's the value to either Microsoft or somebody else coming in, like from a content perspective, besides grabbing all the data, right, Alfred? But like, I use it. Like, do you have any thoughts on like what's the value, like the value prop of this this app?
Well, I think one of the things is ease of use, right? So I'm not actually a user of TikTok, but from everything that I've seen of the app and kind of manipulated without posting videos, it's just really easy to use, right? You can take 10 different videos and splice them together, and it will do the work for you, right? And so it creates these very fun, very like clicky videos. And so it's had, as Alfred said, it's really popular with teens, but we're starting to see that it's kind of, as more people are becoming familiar with it, it's starting to get traction. I mean, even Kara Swisher was saying that like she spends an hour every day trying to figure out like how she can use TikTok to produce content of some sort. So there's definitely a lot of interest from, could it be a mechanism for interesting journalism in a way? And as there's such a push towards digital, and especially right now with everyone being remote, I think that there are kind of more possibilities for using TikTok. But I think I think the value of it is the ease of use, right? We saw Instagram and Facebook try to put out Reels, which was its kind of competitor to that, or its own version. And from what I've seen of that, and my experience using it, it's not as easy to use, and the content doesn't have that same crisp, quite polished look. So I think that they really have something quite valuable and interesting, and I think that there are a lot of Microsoft is definitely, I think, the most likely contender, but I think that there are a lot of other companies that would be kind of salivating at the opportunity to kind of take a portion of this and kind of have some equity there, because it's really a popular app.
It's the attention too. You got to think, with 100 million people just in this country alone using it, that's valuable. Even if there's no way to turn a dial and make those and monetize all 100 million right away, the hope is down the road they'll figure that out. I think TikTok's advertising business is really tiny, in the hundreds of millions compared to the tens of billions you see from Facebook.
It's still growing. Yeah, for sure.
It's growing, of course, but they're just in the very early stages of monetizing the service. And we've seen this over time through so many Silicon Valley companies, grow as fast as you can, as quickly as you can, and then figure out a monetization strategy later. Obviously, it's going to be based on advertising. It has to keep the product free. And plus, they can utilize all that data they're grabbing. So that's the value there. They see this huge audience and attention being geared towards this one app. And that's what has people excited to buy it.
Yeah, and
I think one of the reasons
for the comment too. I was just going to respond to Lori here. Had noted too, again, capturing the kind of the value from the mostly young users. So again, we're seeing more professional folks get on there, some journalism application. I was kind of surprised to hear that the NPR even received some grant monies from TikTok to work on developing content. I heard about that the other day. So again, I think they're trying to get some, more professional adoption too, but a lot of entertainment content coming out on that platform, especially the younger users. And then maybe too, you can help field this one, Alfred. There's a question here from Lisa about what are the ways Microsoft could integrate TikTok beyond, the Xbox platform? Again, we know Microsoft is really big in gaming, right?
Well, I think that if Microsoft, if Microsoft acquires TikTok, then it kind of has the best of both social networks, right? They have, they own LinkedIn, and then that's something that any professional, anyone who wants to have a career kind of needs to be on for networking purposes. And then they would also have TikTok in a sense of, getting all the younger internet users out there. So they would basically have the professional social network, and then they have this one that's for joke videos and memes and kind of things like that. I think it would be a huge boost to their social networking capabilities, and it kind of just breaks them into competition with Facebook and Twitter in a way that they really weren't in contention with for a very long time.
And again, sometimes the jokes, the humor, the memes, that's how you kind of growth hack a bit too. You get people on, you get people using it, you get people sharing cat videos, right? That's kind of how the internet came to be a little bit, as well as Facebook. And then sometimes there are more professional pivots, right? So I think, again, just getting the audience there and then figuring out how to monetize. But that doesn't always convert. We've seen with the acquisition of Oath acquiring Tumblr as well, where was the monetization there? That was kind of a big thud, right? And I've been known to say in my classes, you can copy functionality. Reels may look like TikTok, maybe not as easy to use, but something that's really hard to copy is culture, right? And we know that there is a weird kind of buzz and funness about TikTok. Maybe it's just the editing or the way that the music is integrated, but there seems to be something culturally happening there. I don't know. Are you guys picking up on anything that might be a little bit different about how people are using TikTok than they are, Instagram versus other platforms, Snap? Something that's nerdy about it. Maybe we could talk about the softer sides of TikTok.
I mean, I was going to mention this earlier that the ease of use of the editing tools are definitely one of the bigger reasons why so many teens have kind of gravitated to it. They don't really want to learn how to use Final Cut Pro to make a 30-second video about how much money Jeff Bezos has or something like that. And they have something like the green screen effect, which doesn't really look like a good green screen. It's kind of like the Zoom green screen feature, but that's enough for an amateur video kind of thing that they're trying to make for TikTok. They're not trying to make a professional TV show or anything like that, but it's good enough and it's easy enough for them to accomplish what they need. Also, I don't know how TikTok actually does this with music rights or anything like that, but it is much easier to edit a video with licensed music on there. The flip the switch challenge that happened with that Elizabeth Warren was in also. That's from a Drake song, and I know that Instagram and YouTube in particular are extremely strict about
content
music
ID,
licensing. Where I think one time I tried uploading a video onto Instagram, and this was just my stories or something like that, and it muted it because it had licensed music, which it's
newish issue. So, and again, we can just pay homage to Rip Vine, right? Vine was the Twitter product that allowed for a lot of the music. So there's a lot of what we call modality in the memes that are able to be created on TikTok, because you can instantly pump in that music, and that's a huge piece. And so it'll be interesting to see if Reels is able to integrate in as quickly, some of that functionality that TikTok put in. So again, maybe something's happening that's a little bit different culturally. There's a big dance, dance meme trend, but also kind of maybe older school techniques of the jump cuts, right? All of this editing was really easy to pull off and was fun and playful within that TikTok app. So again, I think it drew a certain type of creator to that space and has created its own kind of culture. So culture is not as easy to copy, but if the users are shut off of the platform in a handful more days here, they will go somewhere, right? Where are you guys seeing any exodus to? Where are they, some of the bigger influencers cross promoting to? Where's the backup? What's happening there?
I mean, if Reels can kind of, one of the things they've said, there was a New York Times article that kind of compared the two and really panned Instagram Reels. And the response from the company was that, we're working on all of these things. And it is new. And I think, they've definitely been working on it for a year, probably more than that even, but it's not something like they just launched this. It's clearly there's been a lot of work to get it to this point where they debuted it. But well, now that they have feedback from users, I think that they are, they're generally pretty quick, and because of how big they are and how much kind of power they have in the marketplace, I think they can, really integrate some of these changes. If they're able to do that, and if TikTok users are kind of going off the app, then, Reels could be a potential landing spot for them, right? Instagram is already very popular. If they're able to kind of make it a little bit easier to use, if they're able to solve some of those issues with music copyright, because I think at this point, even if you create a video on Reels and then try to save it to your phone, it strips the music because of the rights issue. So if they're able to kind of fix all of that, it could potentially be, a really viable option for users looking for a TikTok alternative, and would just add to, which is interesting because it would add to kind of the power that Instagram and Facebook already have. And, as you mentioned, Facebook's already under a lot of antitrust scrutiny. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out.
Yeah. Alfred, maybe you could walk us through the mechanics. What does a shutdown look like? Is it just app stores that are going to be shut down? What happens? What happens if it turns off?
So they can't, I'm pretty sure the Trump administration can't just say this app is banned, but they can do a lot of things that make it very hard to operate in the U.S., which would effectively make it a ban. We saw this kind of happen with Huawei, last year, where essentially if they're on like an entity list or something like that, it would mean that, they can't operate within U.S. companies can't work with them, so they wouldn't be able to advertise, which would be the lifeblood of its finances, and then they wouldn't be able to be on like the app stores or anything like that. So if you wanted it on your phone, you might have to jailbreak your iPhone, or you might have to sideload it on Android, which major security risk. Don't ever do that, because if the moment you have to sideload an app or anything like that, it becomes like, people will go online and they'll put like fake versions of the app and like trick people into downloading them. And then, that creates a security risk in and of itself. Yeah. But yeah, so they would make it so that, Google and Apple wouldn't be allowed to put them on their app stores, for example. And then that becomes, that becomes much harder. I remember when the executive order first came out, all of a sudden, VPNs started trending on Twitter because there were all these people talking about, how do I get a VPN so that I have a Mexican IP address or a Canadian IP address so that I can still download TikTok on my phone? Yeah.
So we're not quite sure if, what the ban will look like, and will they actually be blocked from using it, or if they'll be able to use local copies. Sounds like it'll introduce some security risks, but a lot of people really like this app, right? And so they probably will take some of the risks to keep using it locally as long as they can. But what is the political ramifications of denying 100 million U.S. users access to one of their favorite new apps? And thank you to one of my colleagues, Joel, for kind of tying this into the to the Tulsa rally. Maybe this is one reason why the president is instituting this executive order now. Why now? But will there be a big blowback? Will there be some Tulsa rally-esque response? What are users going to respond?
It could be. Think of it this way. Do you think a bunch of Gen Zers are likely to vote for Trump? Probably not. So I don't think this is like a political risk, like they're going to suddenly lose a bunch of votes, or Trump fears he's going to lose a bunch of votes by banning this app.
But do you think they're going to get out and vote? I've heard some discussion about this. Is it going to cause the TikTok folks to go out and vote?
It could. If they're mad enough, it could be. But I think
are they going to be
this is
dancing
more.
outside the polls? Like, what's going to happen?
No, no, yeah, they're
Is
gonna
it going to
be they're gonna be
like some new
dabbing outside the
renegade
polls.
style?
Right.
You know,
No,
like
I
we
think
need a protest dance. I think no.
No, it's good. I think the real thing is it's a tough on China stance, and we've seen signals from TikTok ahead of this executive order that they're trying to appease the Trump administration, saying we're going to build a new headquarters here in the U.S. We're going to hire a bunch of people. We're investing. Trump and his administration loves to hear jobs. We saw this a little bit 3 years ago with Apple promising to create so many jobs, and they really, Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, did a really good job playing the administration and kind of giving them what they wanted in order to get what he wanted out of the various trade deals and getting exemptions for their businesses in China. But I think a really important aspect that we're also missing here is, as much as pro-business as the Trump administration likes to project themselves to be, this is really bad because a lot of, especially with WeChat, a lot of companies are tied up in WeChat, like you mentioned earlier, through marketing in China. They do a lot of business through WeChat. And then there's WeChat's parent company, Tencent, which has tons of investments in gaming and sports media and streaming, and including the NBA. The way people in China watch the NBA is through Tencent. There's a $1.5 billion deal between Tencent and the NBA to do that. So, it's so unclear and so muddy, the scope and how narrow this order might be when it comes to the WeChat Tencent part. And the Journal just had a really good article on this morning. There was a call with Apple executives and a bunch of other companies saying like, hey, this is going to really hurt us. Can you give us some more details on this? Because we still don't know. And in our discussions with the White House, they don't know. It's so clear that they just really rushed this out without thinking of all the ramifications.
Yeah, maybe we can tie this into Sean's question. We were going to get to this, but thanks for the reminder here too. Again, you're saying, just summarize, the Trump administration is known for being very pro-business, but this is uncharted territory too, because the president has also said, well, I want a finder's fee. I want a kickback for this deal. That doesn't happen even in the past under CFIUS, anything like this. Like that essentially puts the United States government in a conflict position, right, where they have the ability to have financial gain that goes into the coffers of the Treasury Department, right? So
it's so bizarre.
Maybe, Steve?
Yeah, it's so bizarre. And
Microsoft,
I have no idea. So it's and so last week when Microsoft put out their statement saying yes, we're looking into it, they said our CEO Satya Nadella talked to Trump about this, and there was a line in the first graph of that statement saying kind of hinting that the Treasury might get some kind of windfall. I don't think that, I don't even know if that's possible or if that's possible. It's just such a weird thing to ask for, give us a cut. Obviously there are taxes and fees that go through for any kind of acquisition, but in addition to that, we get a cut. If it sells for 20 billion, we get, 5% of that. It's absolutely bizarre and very Trumpian.
It's a massive conflict, right? That just
100%.
doesn't even frame the United States in a positive light with businesses anywhere in the world. Again, I've just seen a lot of folks being really troubled about that kind of kickback. So it's just really unprecedented. But we've seen a couple of things introduced, but again, we still don't know what it would look like. It was also concerning that Microsoft had put up a quick statement saying, okay, we're cool with that. We're okay with paying some of this kickback, right? It's not just it's not like the president is just in this instance stating things without people kind of collaborating along these lines. So I'm still trying to navigate this. Maybe we can go back to Microsoft just a little bit more. Can somebody just speak to some of their other lines of business, maybe the history with LinkedIn, maybe some of the antitrust stuff in the past? Why weren't they called to this antitrust hearing the other day? They're one of the big tech companies here. They're involved in social media. They have a history with antitrust, and it was just a few days after that all of this TikTok stuff has gone down. Is this indicative of some type of deeper relationship with the government here?
Was that for me?
Or Isa, Alfred, anyone who wants to, yeah, go for it, Steve, if you want to jump in.
Yeah,
I mean, what is this showing us, this relationship with Microsoft?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because, the common theory is like, okay, Microsoft went through something similar over 20 years ago, and they've kind of cleaned up their act, and they don't have to worry about it. That's true, and it's a little bit, just because it's kind of changed its focus under Satya Nadella, who took over as CEO about 6 years and change ago. Changed its focus from kind of a consumer-y company. It's really now just like an enterprise and cloud-based business. That's where all their money comes from, selling you Office 365 subscriptions and like that. And, Windows and Xbox and LinkedIn, they're all, parts of the puzzle at Microsoft, but they're not the main driver of the business. So the idea is it might be a little harder today to argue that Microsoft can leverage its market power to kind of quash competitors. Do they do it? Probably in some ways you can make the argument, but it's less, it looks less egregious compared to what those other 4 companies are doing. So that's probably one of the reasons why they didn't come up. And plus, you got to keep in mind, there are several investigations in those 4 tech companies kind of running in parallel. We have the House Antitrust Subcommittee, which we saw the hearing a couple weeks ago, the FTC, DOJ, and then groups of state attorneys general. So those 4 companies are being looked at from like so many different sides. And, Microsoft gets a little bit of a pass this round. Doesn't mean they're totally scot-free, but right now all the focus is on those 4.
Alfred, could you maybe just speak to a little bit of, with the antitrust group of big tech plus Microsoft, like what is their connection point with the US government? I mean, are they, building software, right? Like maybe you could speak to some of the privacy, monitoring, anything with AI. I know Google has some history there too, right? Maybe you could just speak again as to the relationship between big tech and the government.
Yeah, Amazon, obviously, like one of the bigger players there. They're currently in a feud with Microsoft and the Department of Defense over the Jedi contract. Microsoft had won out the contract to provide cloud services to the Pentagon. Now Amazon is suing and basically saying, hey, no, this is not fair. We were not considered for this contract because we are like, Trump has a feud with Jeff Bezos. But, Amazon has a big, plays a big part in like government contracts and things like that. Even I've written like very extensively about Ring and the contracts that they have with, more than 1,400 police departments across the country.
Maybe you could just explain what Ring is in case folks haven't heard of it yet.
Yeah, if Ring is a video doorbell that Amazon acquired in like 2018, where they pitched it as you have this video doorbell that's connected to your Wi-Fi, and you can see people coming in and out of your doorsteps or something like that, mostly to avoid people coming in and stealing your packages, which is a problem created because of Amazon, and over the last 2 years, they've been expanding a lot and working with police departments to say, we can connect you to Ring users and say, if you ever need footage of like a burglary or something like that, or somebody who broke into a car, you can directly contact our users and ask them, can you provide us footage, rather than walking around and going and, knocking on everyone's doors. That's really created like this massive surveillance network for them. I think Amazon is kind of the big player here with, reaching out for government contracts and things like that. Google has been in kind of hot trouble for working for, trying to get contracts with the government. A lot of its employees have said, we don't want to do this. We don't want to be a part of this, government apparatus. We just kind of want to make Google search and Android products and things like that. Apple and Facebook, not so much, but I do know that, Facebook obviously has been in a lot of hot water over privacy issues and this conservative idea that, their Facebook feeds are being censored by like liberal elites or something like that. And obviously privacy concerns and election security is going to be a big issue for Facebook and big government this year. But yeah, I think Amazon and is kind of the key player here. There's obviously a lot of protests about Amazon providing AWS, which is Amazon Web Services. That's their cloud component to the Department of Homeland Security and agencies like ICE and facial recognition also from Amazon.
Right. So again, all of these big tech companies at some point have some connection point, either through contracts or services, and they have a lot of the relationships. Some of the older ones, especially, again, Amazon, Microsoft, which have been around for a while. So thanks for laying that out. Yeah, go for it.
I forgot to mention Apple. Apple is also currently in a feud with the Justice Department over its unwillingness to break its own encryption. The FBI has been, constantly trying to, break through Apple encryption, and they haven't really been able to do it, and they keep trying to force Apple to do it themselves. So that's another issue for them.
Right. So whereas like maybe Google, Amazon, Microsoft can provide more services and research and contracts, we're seeing Apple, maybe Facebook, in a position where they're getting requests for private information or user or government requests of information of users, and there's that relationship is a little bit more combative. Would you say that's fair?
No, they provide information when they can. Like every 6 months or so, all of these companies release like a transparency report, and it always goes up. Google has been providing responses to this thing called a geofence warrant increasingly lately, where instead of like saying I want to know where Alfred was, they might do like I want to know where everyone was within this like specific time frame, which is being argued as unconstitutional currently. But they all get requests. I think the big argument right now is about encryption itself, where when things are hard coded in a way that nobody besides the person who has access to it should be able to get it. Apple themselves can't break into it. The Google and Facebook, with WhatsApp have also stood by Apple on this, and I think a lot of the tech industry has been very, very steadfast on encryption and saying we're not going to break this for your investigations or anything like that. So other requests, like Apple provides like a lot of metadata on stuff, they're just not willing to break their own encryption.
Yeah. So again, they're all kind of positioned to be requested to give data information, some certain levels nuanced as to if it's with encryption or a geofence. But again, I think my point was kind of pointing out too that they're getting requests from data. They have a relationship there where the government can say, no, really, we want this, and they may have some court battles, versus companies that have maybe deep service contracts where they're providing, again, like artificial intelligence or hosting cloud data, et cetera, right? So just maybe separating the two different types of relationships just a little bit more. Let's jump over to Tara here too, because I think this is a really important question. And this leads us into, I was hoping to at least touch on policy and how some of the implications of this executive order might kind of draw us into changes in social media. And but the question here was essentially, like, how concerned are we about information being spread on TikTok? We know that when it comes to content moderation, there's been some issues within, kind of what type of content is being pushed out there, how it's being moderated, is it being moderated transparently, in this kind of big brother, kind of position, as Tara was noting here. But, is there an issue too with the election, with misinformation being spread on TikTok? And then also, maybe tying to their recent statement about how TikTok said they would kind of unveil how their algorithm works, and unlike Facebook and others who keep that kind of more in this proprietary space. But Facebook did just say they would submit to an independent audit here. So was that connected? Did TikTok kind of draw out Facebook to kind of give some more transparency? Does this hint at why it's good to have multiple platforms out there in the universe, right? Like, does it actually, lead to better products and more transparency and more corporate social responsibility? So maybe you could dive in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely. I think that's why this is so important, right? Why competition is important, and why it's good to not have these monopolies, right? Because then there is that kind of informal check on people's abilities and companies' abilities to kind of use information or kind of be transparent. And I think it's interesting. I think that, you know, as far as misinformation being rampant on TikTok, you know, from the way that it's being used now, that's not really my concern. I do think it's interesting, and we kind of alluded to this, though, that, you know, just in terms of social media policy, things like that, the rally in Tulsa, Trump was trolled massively on TikTok, right? Then, you know, and then he takes issue with it, right? And he's had issues with China, and ByteDance has been under investigation for a while. So it's not that, you know, but I think that we're seeing that he does tend to kind of escalate these executive orders, or, you know, really escalate his fight against social media outlets when he has kind of negative feedback from them or negative responses. The, you know, the Tulsa rally and TikTok, he also, there's Section 230, which kind of would essentially protects a lot of these social media companies now from being held liable for things that are posted, user content that's posted, and
allows for that to be pulled down, right? Yeah,
absolutely. Shortly after Twitter started really fact checking some of his tweets. So I think that there's a correlation there. That's interesting.
Yeah. So do you think that the president thinks that K-pop disrupted the election? Can we just give a shout out?
I hope he thinks that. I really hope he thinks that.
With their protesting?
I hope
was
he knows
that
what
organized, coordinated, inauthentic behavior, or was it authentic or just awesome behavior? I don't know. What is it? Like, what was K-pop? And maybe you could just elaborate a little bit more on what happened in Tulsa for those who have not been privileged of that.
I'll take that one. And I wanted and I wanted to bounce on something that Issa was saying too. But the K-pop thing was, K-pop is Korean pop music, and a bunch of these fans basically started this movement on TikTok and Twitter. I think it was involved with Twitter too. Basically to buy fake tickets to that Tulsa rally. So, you know, the Trump campaign was all excited. Oh, we have like more signups to come than, you know, we have capacity and so on and so forth. Then the rally happens and it's like the stadium was barely filled up. So it was just kind of an embarrassing thing for the Trump campaign to spend the days leading up to that rally when it was clearly a movement. And then just speaking to my friends and colleagues who have kids who are TikTok users, it was really funny. They all said they did it. They're like, oh yeah, my 15-year-old bought a Trump rally ticket because of that.
Is that what engaged political activity looks like now?
I think so. Yeah, why not?
TikTok protest?
Yeah, it was.
It's funny. It's a good troll.
Yeah. So we used words like troll, but maybe we can also talk a little bit about what we also refer to as soft power. I mean, I study propaganda, right? So, what is soft power? Anybody? Alfred, you maybe want to take a pass at that. Like, what is the political gain maybe from suppressing TikTok at this time, and what is soft power?
I mean, I think in a way to describe it, it's just like cultural power, right? Like K-pop being a big part of that. You know, K-pop doesn't have the power to make policy or you know, ban anything or you know, prevent this Tulsa rally from happening, but you know, they have cultural power enough to drive people to go and say, yeah, we're all going to you know, sign up for a bunch of like fake tickets or something like that and just make it look like it's a disaster. Like, that's soft power. They don't have the power to completely stop it, but it does have the power to influence people to act a certain way. And you know, TikTok like has a lot of that. And I kind of wanted to, you know, rehash a point that was brought up earlier. I don't think TikTok is immune to political disinformation. I know that around March, this was, you know, I believe it was Super Tuesday, and the Department of Homeland Security, they have an agency called the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. They're the ones that deal with all the political security stuff, that like election security kind of stuff. And they, since 2016, they have been working with, you know, major tech companies like Google, Facebook, Twitter, and Reddit specifically to help handle disinformation happening on their social networks and alerting them to it to ban these kinds of posts. I know on Super Tuesday they mentioned that they have a connection with TikTok now, and that they've been talking with them about potential disinformation on their social network. I know there was a report like 2 weeks ago or so about this so TikTok also has this thing for their influencers called hype houses, where they all like pool their money in together or something like that, and they have this like big mansion that I assume might be an Airbnb or something like that. I don't think they own it, but it's all these like influencers that all just live together and make videos. So there's a Republican hype house, and one of the people that lives in it made this video that was basically saying like, Democrats vote on November 5th when, and Republicans vote on November 3rd, which was a common disinformation tactic that Russian operatives actually used in 2016. So yeah, that user was banned, or at least that video was taken down, but it does show that, these things do have the potential to go viral. And I know that the agency that I mentioned earlier, the Homeland Security agency that works with these tech companies, they just had a meeting yesterday with 9 companies, including Facebook, Google,
all the big,
Twitter, and Reddit. But TikTok was not
all
involved
domestic,
in that.
though. They were domestic, domestic companies. So
TikTok was notably
so when it comes to this kind of election meddling, like the soft power, is some of it the fact that President Trump is a tweeter? You know what I mean? Is it because there are these cultural conversations happening, or political, movements taking place, and it's outside maybe the adoption space of some within his party? Is that viable? Is that part of the drive here, is to cut off pieces of the soft power, do you think? Maybe Isaac, do you want to jump in on that one? Like what I'm trying to get at, the soft power. Why now? Is this specifically, do you think, meant to make sure that there isn't disinfo, or that there isn't some type of influence happening around the election that's coming up soon?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that as far as like if the executive orders are tied to that. I don't. He might say that that's why. I'm not sure that it has much to do with that at the moment. I know that, as Alfred mentioned, there are several federal organizations or federal entities working with different companies, Facebook, Reddit, et cetera, to fight disinformation, and that is something that has definitely been an issue since the last election. As far as whether Trump's executive orders are tied to that, I'm not so convinced of that. I do think in terms of soft power, and in terms of kind of America's soft power, I do think that the Trump administration has, a lot of his policies have kind of weakened our soft power in a way, right? America is known for, students come here from all over the world. There's so much innovation, there's so much openness. And a lot of the policies that we've seen recently regarding foreign students, regarding foreign companies, have kind of been contrary to that long legacy. So I think that as far as America's overall soft power, I think that it is a little bit under threat from some of these policies that kind of really target and kind of jeopardize the principles that have given America so much power for so long over other countries, right? Because of our openness and our the fact that people are coming here from all over the world because of the innovation opportunities.
Yeah. But again, I think we're hinting at here too, the fact that to date, social media has really been, from U.S. companies. TikTok was one of the very first to break out, to reach such a large base around the world, to really truly become global. I've seen them out pushing Twitter ads just in the last week, trying to drive downloads of TikTok. It's almost like they're trying to get their foothold in quick at the last minute, And with that too, maybe we could start to transition, because I'm noticing we only have about 2 minutes left here. I'm looking at the open questions, and I think we've touched on some of the questions, maybe more broadly. Some of these are a bit more detailed, but I want to invite you guys to connect with all of us on Twitter. We're tweeters, so maybe we could follow up there. I know my DMs are open, or you can maybe tag us in a tweet, and we can continue the conversation on on that platform, if you will. That's my preferred platform. Sorry, guys, I don't really TikTok yet. I want to make sure that it's going to stick around really before I've invested. That's why I haven't been kind of signing this in my social media class for a couple of years now, because I'm like, I don't know if we want to be influencers in this space yet, because I'm not sure it's going to evaporate here someday. So I think we're going to get to the bottom of this soon, though. So maybe just in the last minute here, we'll give each of you, starting with Steve, Isa, and then Alfred, like just a quick upshot. Do you think it's going to get shut down?
Do I think it's no? I think the end result is Microsoft buys it.
Okay, so you at least think it's somebody gonna buy it. All right, we're just gonna go for some predictions.
I think Microsoft will take it. Yeah, that's.
So we can have clout here at the end. You can say you called it, right? So
exactly, yeah. This is gonna be on YouTube later, right? So we can just go back and timestamp it. Okay,
that's right. Yeah. Okay, all right. Isa, what do you think?
I agree. I think Microsoft is gonna buy it, and I think that at the end of the day, looking at Trump's trade war with China and kind of the effectiveness of that, if he does get this win where he essentially his executive order does lead to this sale, it's kind of a big win he can tout in his fight against China right in front of the election, or ahead of the election. So I do think Microsoft will buy it, and I do think Trump will use that and say that his executive orders put pressure on this, and it's a win for America.
Yeah. All right, Alfred, last one. What do you think? Is it going to get shut down?
I think that if Microsoft buys it, I hope that people continue to call out TikTok for the privacy concerns that they all raised that was going on, while it's still being owned by China, because that's not going away. TikTok is still going to be taking all this data from your devices, and I think it should lead to a larger conversation about, how much data these apps all are taking from you. And, it would be really disingenuous if after Microsoft buys it, everyone starts looking at TikTok and starts thinking, oh, like this isn't a privacy issue anymore. Like it still very much is.
All right. So you think it's going to stay open? And Microsoft's going to buy it?
I mean, if they do,
this is my one chance to get you on the record.
I don't know enough about like the political ongoings and Microsoft here to say.
We'll let you run away from that one. All right, so maybe just to summarize this, again, if that happens, Microsoft is able to buy it, and WeChat still shuts down. Just to kind of lay the land for everybody, that means that the one kind of port in and out of China from the Great Firewall into the open internet, if you want to call it that still, is going to be Microsoft run and owned. That could be really, really interesting. So that is, I think, the key point to watch right now. So thank you again to all the alumni. Please get at us on Twitter. Please join some of these future Zooms. And I hope to catch up more with all of you. And thanks again to all the organizers at Newhouse for putting us together. And you're welcome, Google, YouTube, Alphabet, for us contributing this wonderful conversation onto the YouTube platform. We'll see you guys in the comments over there as well. All right, take care, everyone. Be well, be safe. All right, more soon. See ya.
Bye.
Bye. Peace.